Hi, in this tutorial I will present a LabVIEW GraphQL API for the Dimension4 IoT service. So first, GraphQL is a query language for APIs. GraphQL was developed by Facebook back in 2012, but is now open source, so everybody can use GraphQL for their applications and their services. Typically, GraphQL is typically used in Internet of Things applications. So GraphQL is typically used to develop web APIs that you can use in your Internet of Things applications. And you could say GraphQL is a competitor to REST APIs, which is also very popular in Internet of Things applications. You can find more information about GraphQL on these web pages. Next, I have created a LabVIEW GraphQL API for the Dimension4 Internet of Things service. So Dimension4 is an IoT company located in Skien in Norway. Here you find their web page, and they offer an Internet of Things service that are using GraphQL. So you find more information about this Internet of Things service at this web page. Here you see an overview of the data structure used in this Internet of Things service. There are three main things. You have spaces, which is typically a folder. For instance, you could have a folder temperature or building A, factory A, etc. And you can have different subfolders in a hierarchy, and within these spaces you can have one or more points. A point is it could be a physical device or the actual sensor. For instance, temperature 36, which is a temperature sensor. And finally you have signals. That's the actual measurements. So you store the signals within a point, and then you locate the point in a space, and the spaces can have an hierarchical structure, where you can have the main space, and you can have a subspace below that space, etc. Just like you have folders in your computer. And then you store these points inside these spaces, and then finally you have these signals. So Dimension4 offers what they call a GraphQL playground. So with this playground you can create spaces, points and signals. But typically you want to use or do this from a programming language or from an application. So that's why I have created this LabVIEW API that are interfacing this GraphQL API from Dimension4. So here you see an overview of the LabVIEW API that interfaces this GraphQL API. Here you have the API functions for write spaces, write points, write signals, read signals, get specific spaces and points, get specific point information, etc. And here you have some examples. And you have created some main VIs, especially one VI for data logging. So you can use this as a template for your application. And also have created a dashboard where you can create new spaces and points, and you can view data or signals data in different charts. So here you see the data logging application. So here you just select the point, and then you just start logging, and the data will be stored in this Dimension4 Internet of Things service. And here you see the dashboard that has been created and is part of this LabVIEW API. So here on the left side you can browse through different spaces and points, and when you click on a specific point you will get the data for that specific point, or the signals. So let's go through some of the main features of this LabVIEW Dimension4 API. So this is an API created with the LabVIEW, and of course you need the LabVIEW programming environment in order to use this API. So I will go through these basic examples. I will start with this dashboard. I just open application, and here on the left side you have the different spaces and the different points. So when I click on a specific point, I get the signals data for that specific signal. Here you get the values inside the chart, and here you see the raw data. You can save the data to different types of files. You can save it to a JSON file, an XML file, a CSV file, or a Microsoft Excel file. And here you select this path where you are going to store the file, and here you see the data that will be stored. Here on the JSON also you see the JSON string that represents the data, which you see here in the chart. You can also configure and set up new spaces and points. So I can click here under configure spaces, and I open this window where you get an overview of the spaces and points, and then you can create new space, and you can create new points below a specific space. And also here on the preferences you set up the username, or as they call it in the Dimension4 Internet of Things service, tenant ID. So that's basically the username, and the password is called the tenant key. So this information is stored in a text file on your computer. So you need to enter this user information, the username and password, in order to get access to the data. And also here on the developer, when you click on a specific point and you retrieve this data, you will see here the actual GraphQL query that is used in the background. You can also go to the Dimension4 playground, which you find here, and basically then you can just copy this query, paste it in here in this playground, and run it. So basically this is the GraphQL query, and then you just click the run button, and then you get the data here on the right side. And then you can use this query as a template for your own queries. You can change the point ID, how many data points you want to retrieve, specify a timestamp, what kind of columns or information that you want to retrieve. Let's go back to this dashboard application. So the next thing we need to do now is to first I can do is to create a new space. So let's create a new space. Then I go to configuration, configure spaces. Let's create a new space. Let's call it my space, and then you will see it will be located here, and then I just click on the my space and create a new point, and then I just call it my point like this, click OK, and then you see this point with a specific point ID has been created under the my space space. So then I can just click exit here, and then you will also find it here. And now if I go to chart, you see the chart will be empty because there are no signals within that specific point. So then I can go back to the API, and I will open the data logging application. I will run it and select my specific point, which is this one. Click use, and then I can start logging, and then you can set up here a logging interval, so then now there will be logged a new data or a new signal every 10 seconds in this case, and then you will see the value here. So I'm just reading data from a simple temperature sensor in this case, and as you see, every 10 seconds there will be logged a new signal to the Dimension4 IoT service. And then I can go to the dashboard while this application is logging data to the service. I can click on my point here, and then you see I'll get the same values here. I'll get the data. I can save the data to a text file in these different formats. I can see the JSON data, and I can configure also here the refresh rate. So now I can update the data here by clicking the refresh data in order to update the chart, or I can specify the refresh rate. So basically, if I don't click the refresh button here, the chart will be updated according to this refresh rate. Here on the developer, I can also see the GraphQL query that are used in the background, and I can use the Dimension4 playground also to see the data in that playground. Basically, here you set up the data logging, how often you want to log data, etc. in the data logging application, and here in the dashboard application you can easily see data for a specific point like this. Also, when I stop these applications, so these applications of course need the LabVIEW environment, but also I can create an executable file. So I can just here build an executable file of the dashboard. Like this, and then just click no. I can just shut down LabVIEW like this, and then you see here I have the dashboard application, so I can just double click on it, and then I can go back to my space and my point here, and now I can use this dashboard without having LabVIEW installed on my computer, because I have created an executable application that can run on any computer without having the LabVIEW programming environment. So basically, in order to start using this LabVIEW API for the Dimension4 IoT service, you just open the data logging application here, open the block diagram or the code, and then here, when in this case where I read sensor data, I'm using in this example just a random generator in order to simulate a temperature sensor. But then you can just delete this code and insert the code for your sensor. So basically, you just delete this part and replace it with code for your temperature sensor, or if you have other types of sensors. So as you see in this example here Here I'm logging data using a USB 6008 DAC device, which is a DAC device from National Instruments. And here I have replaced this read sensor data part, where I'm in this case using a USB 6008 DAC device and reading values from a temp36 temperature sensor, and the sensor is connected to a breadboard and then interfaced with this NI USB 6008 DAC device. And then I can easily read data from the temperature sensor and then insert the data as signals into the GraphQL and the Dimension4 Internet of Things service. So that's all. So you can download the LabVIEW API for this Dimension4 Internet of Things service from my webpage, which you find here, www.halvorsen.blog. So here you find information about the LabVIEW API, and you can download the API and the examples. So thank you and goodbye.